morning on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday. We're back down into the 80s, and I sort of feel like I can enjoy it and be outside again. It gives me a lot of freedom. I hope you're feeling the same way. I'm Lillian Fifield, your service leader for today, and welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. Our ministers this week are Reverends Bonnie and Andy Anderson, and our services, as you know, are recorded each week and can be viewed anytime on YouTube. Now that you are on YouTube viewing us at this moment, if you click on that red subscribe bar, it will make it much easier for you to find us each week, actually anytime. Links to all our services are in the weekly UmQuest newsletter, and there you can simply click on the links and go directly to the service. Following the service each week, we have a discussion on Zoom. Check-in begins at 11:15 and discussion starts at 11:30. If you have not used Zoom before, just Google Zoom and download the free application. You can do this on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. Follow the prompts, and then you can join us for the meeting. We thank each week Michael Wheeler and Lucy Swangham for their work on producing these videos of our services every week. It's important, as we kind of say each Sunday, to make every effort to stay connected with one another during this physical separation. Please call and check in with other members. And, if you know how to use YouTube and you're talking to another congregant, walk them through it and be sure that they too can join us each Sunday and participate in our services. We begin each service with the lighting of our chalice. And our lighting words for today are by Katie Gelfin. The end is the beginning. We call forth the life of our faith by igniting our chalice. This spark of new beginnings invites us into a sacred space to reflect where we have been and where we are going. Even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end with our ritual extinguishing, we fear not its end, for we know with brave hearts that from every ending of our lives we are sent forth to make a new beginning. Our opening words for today are about loving life. To love life is to notice the wonders that abound. And to notice the wonders that abound is to be grounded in the here and now. And to be grounded here and now is the beginning of finding love for this life today. Our ministers today are Reverend Bonnie Anderson and Reverend Andy Anderson. Both are ordained ministers who live here in Roseburg and have been married for 36 years. Since retiring, sort of, they travel around mostly the West Coast, sharing their music and their messages. Reverend Andy has been described as a singer, songwriter, and poet who always comes from the heart. He composes and performs visionary music, spiritual music that inspires and uplifts. It has been referred to as spiritual food for the soul. One of his greatest blessings is to inspire and wake up the world to a greater understanding of themselves and the power of his music. Reverend Bonnie is a clear teacher and a speaker who is known for helping others to explore their greatness. Using personal stories and examples, she presents ideas that just sort of drop right in and go to the heart. Bonnie, forever the teacher, presents workshops for women as well as workshops with her musician husband, Andy, at churches, retreats, and conferences around the country. Reverend Bonnie is also the facilitator for Soul Collage, and that is a way to discover your wisdom and change your world. And now we have Andy with his music, soon to be followed by Reverend Bonnie with a meditation and a sermon entitled, Be Like Water.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was beautiful. So this is the time for our meditation. And if you would just, wherever you are, listening to this, just take a deep breath and feel yourself sinking down into the chair. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes and take a big breath with me. Hold it a moment and then gently release it. And let your mind and heart release all that disturbs you. Let your body be still, and all the frettings of your body, and all that surrounds it. Let the earth and sea and air be still, and heaven itself. And then think of spirit as streaming, pouring, rushing, and shining into you. Feel that river of life flowing through your body. Through you and out from you in all directions while you sit quietly. That was wonderful. Thank you for joining into that meditation time with Andy and I. So we're delighted to be here this morning, be back filming this for you on Zoom as we have continue these virtual services that we have been doing for churches in many different places. So it's a different life right now. And the title of my talk, as Laleen said, and thank you, Laleen, for a wonderful introduction, is Be Like Water. You know, Lao Tzu said, nothing is softer or more flexible, yet nothing Nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it. Nothing can resist water. Look at the Grand Canyon. I mean, the Grand Canyon is amazing, and it was formed by the movement of water. It's more than a mile deep. Took 6 million years to form. And you can view 2 billion years of the Earth's geology in that canyon, formed by the amazing strength of water. So it's not only soft and flexible, but it's very powerful and strong. So I'd like to read to you a Zen story that I really like, called A Waterfall. Once, Confucius and his students went on a hike out in the countryside to visit a majestic waterfall. The waterfall was known for the great height from which the water fell and the tremendous force when it hit the bottom. As they were nearing the waterfall, they saw a man in the ferociously churning water being spun around and whipped this way and that by the terrifying currents. "Quickly to the waterfall," Confucius commanded. "He must have fallen in by accident. Even fish cannot survive such water. We must save him if we can." They ran as fast as they could, but as they descended the hillside, they lost sight of the man. So they kept walking. Moments later, they broke through the forest to arrive at the river, a short distance downstream from the waterfall. They expected to see the man's lifeless body in the river. Instead, they saw him swimming casually away from the waterfall, spreading his long hair out in the water and singing loudly, evidently having a great time. They were dumbfounded. Confucius felt confused. He asked this man, "When we saw you at the waterfall, first we thought you needed saving. I don't understand. How can it be that you were not harmed by the waterfall? Are there some special skills that you possess?" "No, I have no special skills whatsoever," the man replied. "I simply follow the nature of the water. So I don't really think about it very much. If I had to describe it, I would say that when the powerful torrents twist around me, I turn with them. And if a strong current drives me down, I dive alongside it. As I do so, I am fully aware that when we get to the riverbed, the current will reverse course and provide a strong lift upward. When this occurs, I let myself rise together with it." "So you are actively working with the water and not just letting it have its way with you?" "That's right. Although the water is extremely forceful, it is also a friend that I've gotten to know over the years. So I can sense what it wants to do, and I leverage its flow without trying to manipulate it or impose my will on it." Using the flow of the water. Using its power. So what does it mean to be like water? The man in the story says that he follows the nature of water. He does not try to resist it, but follows its flow. There's been a lot written about flow. Flow can be that place where you lose track of time doing something that you love, and artwork or music or whatever it is that you love, you can lose track of time when you're in that flow. That's one way to tell what your desires are, because that's something that happens. And when you go with this flow, you're not in fear and you don't fight it. Because fear, when we're in fear, we don't have all the intuition available to us that we would at other times. This reminded me of a story a true story. When I was growing up in Michigan, it was all over the newspapers. There was a family out on one of the Great Lakes, and they were in a small boat. They didn't have life preservers on, and they couldn't swim. And the boat capsized, and they flailed around in the water, and they all drowned. It was tragic. But the interesting thing about this was that what happened is they went into fear and their brains didn't work right because they could have just floated on the water, right? The water would lift them up. And it turns out they could have just stood up and walked to shore because the water was only chest deep. They could have just stood up and walked to shore, but they were in fear. They didn't have the full capabilities of their brains, of their logic. So David Alt is a friend of Andy's and mine, who's a minister in Atlanta and a musician. He's very wise. And he says, your solution already exists. When we appear to be in the midst of a tunnel of uncertainty, we have the opportunity to pivot our mental responses from hope to realization. This mental pivoting is a useful skill to transition a future wish into a present fulfillment. A future. So it's like quantum physics tells us that we have an infinite number of possible realities in front of us at all times. And if we don't like the one we're in, we just slip into another one. If we have a solution that we want to solve, a problem that we want to solve, you can slip into another reality where it's already solved. So it's all at our fingertips. There are streams of possibilities like rivers right there in front of us. And actually, we can pivot to a new reality. We can always change our story. If you don't like the story you're living right now, if it has strife and struggle, you can always, every morning, you can wake up and pick a new story, write a new story for yourself. And these are challenging times that we're going through right now, extraordinarily challenging times. Who would have thought that a year ago that we would walk into a Safeway and everyone would be wearing masks and it would feel normal? It's very different reality right now. We have the coronavirus, which is frightening, which people are dying from. We have a planet in crisis, which is causing warming and fires. Our son in Patterson, California, may have to evacuate because there's fires all in that region. There's very real fear that democracy is eroding, that the principles that we have grown to love and respect are not being honored. And a fear that the racial divide that maybe we didn't even realize was here, it may be so challenging we may not be able to bridge it. These are some of the fears and the concerns that we have. But how can we be like water? How can we be like water? So when I was working on this talk, I sat by the river at our house. Some of you have been there. I sat down on the swing and watched the river and watched the flow. I just watched it flowing. And you could hear it going over rocks and going down the river. It's easily effortless. It never ceases. If it runs into an obstacle like a rock, it simply goes over or around it. It's being in the flow and not fighting it. Rumi says, when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you. A joy. So we have that river moving through us all of the time to access when we become afraid, to pull us out of the despair and into a new story. We can allow ourselves to be in the rhythm and flow of life rather than frozen in fear. We can listen to our bodies. This is something I've been learning lately, is check in with your body when you're feeling a certain way. Where is it? Where is the fear held? In your heart, in your solar plexus? Where is it manifesting? Where does your joy live? And then when you realize where that energy is, you can work with releasing it or allowing it out. Go with the flow. Remember, in the 70s, it seems like that was a statement. Everyone said, go with the flow. It's a way of surrendering to what is, Out of this heart shall flow rivers of living waters. Let go and let the flow of life unfold. We don't create it, we just allow it. We simply accept it and go with it. When we live our life from the inside out, no matter what happens around us or to us, we can always get to the transcendent flow within. Because the flow is always with us, ready as one of those realities to slip into it when we feel that we're not in it. It's always something that we can access. Because we're really, truly always in the flow. Even though we don't feel like it sometimes, we never leave that flow. I don't know if any of you have been watching the Democratic convention that's been on television. And I really was impressed by Michelle Obama's speech. And one of the things that she said that I resonated with is she said, we need empathy right now. That's what's needed in our country. We need to be able to walk, the ability to walk in someone else's shoes. So if we see someone that's different from us, that we don't understand, instead of judging them, if we slip into their shoes, we can have nothing but compassion. It changes the way we look at everything. Andy and I used to teach parenting classes years ago, and that was one of the things they taught. Walk in your children's shoes. What does it feel like to be a 3-year-old and to have everything told to you? What to wear, what time to go to bed, what to eat. When you step into another person or a child's shoes, it really changes your perspective. She also talked about she referenced her prior talk where she said, when they go low, we go high. Something that was quoted all over, something that I really resonated with. When they go low, we go high. And so she said, some people are asking me now, does that still work? With as low as it's gone, can we still go high? And she said, yes, because going low, we degrade ourselves. When we bring ourselves down to the level of hatred and racism and anger that is currently in the country, we degrade ourselves. She said, going high does not mean putting on a smile and seeing rainbows. She didn't say rainbows and unicorns, but I'm saying that. Some people refer to that as spiritual bypass, where we just say, oh, everything's fine. We know in truth everything's fine, when actually there's very real things happening that we may have to react to. So she said that it's the harder path to go high. It's standing fierce against hatred. Standing fierce against hatred. So John Lewis, I know that one of the ministers recently did a wonderful talk on him for you, and I'm embarrassed to say I did not know a lot about John Lewis before he passed away. And then I started reading and researching, and he said, when you see something is not right, you should say something. You should do something. Have the courage to do the right thing. And Michelle Obama said, if we want to survive, we have to find a way to live and work together across our differences, embracing our differences, to work together to unite the country rather than dividing it, to go with the flow, and the truth will set us free. And being awake to what is happening around us and not hiding our head in the sand. I recently took a class based on the book Me and White Supremacy that was very powerful. And I became aware of the racial biases that I have. Friends said, why do you need to take this class? You've been married to Andy for over 40 years and you have mixed children, but I still did. You cannot grow up as a white person in this country and not have absorbed some of the beliefs that have been prevalent here. And look at the many ways that people of color have been held back by not giving equal treatment. I think a lot of us are waking up to this now. Andy recently had a conversation with Howard Johnson, Pastor Howard Johnson, who's a pastor of a Baptist church in town. Some of you may know him. And he told a story of in the 80s, his son, who's white, he has a white wife and his stepson is white. His son walked into a car dealership and wanted to buy a car and negotiated a price and an interest rate of 4%, something like that. And then they said, oh, you're going to need a cosigner. So he called his dad, and Howard Johnson said, sure, I'll cosign for you. He signed the paperwork, and he had to go in and do the final signature. And when he walked in the door, and this was in the 80s, early 80s, when he walked in the door, they looked up at him and they said, oh, I'm sorry, the interest rate is 10% because you're black. And they did not even try and hide the fact that there were different rules for different people. So we have been subject to white supremacy that we have not even been aware. So I had to look at, when have I not spoken out? When have I not taken action? When have I been afraid of upsetting someone? When have I become afraid and paralyzed in fear? And it can be very uncomfortable to look at these things. President Obama, at the eulogy for John Lewis, said this: he believed that in all of us there exists the capacity for great courage, that in all of us there is a longing to do what's right, that in all of us there's a willingness to love all people and to extend to them their God-given rights of dignity and respect. But John always saw the best in us, and he never gave up, and he never stopped speaking out because he saw the best in us. He believed in us even when we didn't believe in ourselves. As a congressman, he didn't rest. He kept getting himself arrested. As an old man, he didn't sit out any fight. He sat in all night long on the floor of the United States Capitol. Truly courageous man. And I'm worried about people being upset. So if we want our children to grow up in a democracy, then we are going to have to be more like John. We don't have to do all the things he did because he did them for us, but we do have to do something. Those are Obama's words. We do have to do something. Be like water. Be in the rhythm and flow of life and do the next right thing that is in front of you. If we stay out of panic and fear and despair for the things that are happening around us, it allows us to lift up, choose a new path, and help others see the possibility of a new path. Patanjali, a sage in India, said this: as the removal of earth by a farmer digging a ditch opens up a channel for water to flow to his crops, so the removal of obstacles by the student opens up a channel for cosmic energy to flow into being. So as we allow ourselves to remove that earth, dig that channel, and allow the cosmic energy of the universe to come through us at this challenging time, great things can happen. We can be a channel for this energy when we stay in the flow, when we become like water. Like the man in the waterfall, we can ride the waves of change. We can stay out of fear and allow ourselves to be lifted up by the flow of the universe, which is always here accessible for us. Out of this heart shall flow rivers of living water. Martin Luther King Jr. said, until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let us be a part of this mighty stream. Let us vote and encourage our friends and relatives and neighbors to vote. Let us be this mighty stream, this righteous stream that flows through our country and heals and lifts us up. I have faith. So I encourage you, be like water. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Thank you.
seen my share of struggles when I thought that I knew best. I sailed through storms instead of stopping to rest. And it always seemed the hardest when I made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water coming down the mountains, shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, held to feel no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle heading straight into the wind? He never picks a fight, spreads his wings and just gives in. And he always makes it home just fine. I guess he knows every storm subsides. Wanna be like water coming down the mountain in the shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, held to feel no more. I am bound by the sea. I let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where the rivers are meant to go. I have railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I never won, and the heartaches that I felt. But I always seem to let go and let the expectations and regret. Oh, I know that life is plenty of surprises for me. Oh, I wanna be like water flowing down the mountain like a shadowy canyon, pouring from pool to stream. I wanna be like water, held up here no more. I am bound for the sea. Oh, I wanna be like water coming down the mountain, the shadowy canyon, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, held up here no more. I am bound for the sea.
I'm a little speechless. I have heard so many different sermons from Bonnie, and I'm speechless, Bonnie. That was incredible. And Andy putting together that music with what Bonnie was saying. Thank you both. And I'm so glad that you changed what you were going to do. Midstream, Bonnie actually changed the topic that she had selected, and Spirit works. Spirit always works. So both of you, I am so grateful. Thank you. And in closing, let me remind all of you that we will have an opportunity for you to discuss your reactions to all that you have heard today from Reverend Bonnie and from Reverend Andy. And that happens when you check in at 11:15 on Zoom. Remember that the connection has been emailed to you, and all you need to do is click on that little connection, provided you've already downloaded Zoom. And the discussion itself starts at 11:30. So in closing for today, think about these thoughts. As we enter another week of uncertainty in the world, let us remember these words adapted from the Unity Prayer. The light of love surrounds us. Love enfolds us. The power of love protects us. Love watches over us. Wherever we are, love is and love flows, just like water. Thank you and have a wonderful day.